What's up, guys? Corey Has No Life here for episode number 2 of the Noob Career Mode. This is where we're finally going to jump in to a Formula 1 car and show what we're worth. So we're going to kick things off with unveiling the team that we chose. And that is, of course, Williams. Now, many people say, oh, I saw this coming because you were racing the Williams so much in 2018 in the open lobbies. But no, that is not the reason why I chose them. I chose them because I went for the Mercedes school, and they are a stepping stone to getting to the Mercedes seat. So that's why I chose Williams. So we're going to kick things off. We're doing our first race in Australia, in between the Formula 2 and jumping into the Formula 1. I did do a couple of upgrades, and we'll show them after practice one here.
Any moment now, the drivers will take to the track for what should be a very interesting practice session. Joining me in the commentary box is, of course, Anthony Davidson. And it's great to have you back again. What can you tell us about this year's roster? There are some new faces this year, aren't there?
Absolutely, Crofty. There's been a number of interesting signings over the last few months. Where would you like to start?
We should talk about the new Williams driver.
Right, well, this is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Well, they've been signed up likely in no small part due to the way they carried themselves in the Formula 2 Championship. They have a great track record of putting the team first. At one of the races, they even gave up their own position when their car had a technical issue, so that their teammate Lucas Weber, who also debuts here today, could get ahead. That kind of team spirit could take them a long way this season.
Those two aren't the only new faces from Formula 2 this season, are they?
No, this season will introduce fans to George Russell and Lando Norris, two very promising young British drivers. Plus, we'll meet Alexander Albon from Thailand, and finally, Devon Butler. Now, Devon was a bit of a controversial figure in Formula 2 last year. He racked up a lot of penalties over the course of the season, including one where he collided with his closest rival. It was an arsey clip. Now, certainly after the event, they were nothing but professional in terms of how they spoke about the incident with Devon, but it's hard to imagine them being as polite about it behind closed doors. I think this rival will be one to keep an eye on over the next few races, as both drivers take their first steps into the world of Formula 1.
And here we go. Now, we're not going to bore everyone with the full details of what went on in all the practice sessions. We're just going to get the Cliff Notes versions, but we wanted to just quickly go through and show you what the hub's like here for the live session. You got all your old little goals there. That was same as the 2018 season. You know, your standard tyre select, car setup, power unit and gearbox stuff. Then your timing monitor, your live camera, and skipping sessions and stuff. So we kick things off. We're doing a little bit of the track acclimatation. As you can see, I actually did pretty alright. I got purple on my first try.
That's fantastic. You obviously have a really good
I just love that the engineer said I have a really good understanding of this circuit, and then immediately I locked up and completely muffed turn 1. As you can see, I've gotten the green and purple on all the things there so far. I was going to show you guys my lap in the fuel management, but it got a little bit stuffed up in the recording, and it was just so bad that I couldn't put it in. When it comes to ERS management and the fuel management, you've really got to be very careful on the throttle. Well, at least for the fuel management. For the ERS management, all I did was I put it into low ERS for pretty much the entire lap, and got purple on it first try. So if you're new to this game and you want to give that a try, then that's my suggestion to you.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it. It's been a lot of hard work. But here you are, making your debut in Formula 1. You must be thrilled.
And here we go with the interview. I'll just let you guys see for yourselves what happened here. But I did try to be as sportsmanlike as possible.
So how are you finding things at the team? Are you settling in? What are you expecting out of this season? Are you just aiming to find your feet in Formula One, or do you see something more? Great. Well, that's everything.
And there we go, there is the first interview as a Formula One driver that I'll have done and dusted. Now we move on to the menu hub for career mode, get the resource points in, and I'm going to show you guys what I did outside of the recordings at the end of the first episode when I first signed with Williams, because I did put a little bit into the R&D tree. We started off with 1,000 points. I don't like that rookie to veteran bar. I think it's just a bit of redundant space there that they could have used for something else. And as you can see, I've actually got a pretty good contract to start things off here. Like, my value is nowhere near the contract there. Oh, I guess I'm not showing you guys what I've done with the R&D tree. Sorry, I thought I was. So we're going on to the qualifying pace one now. And I'm actually going to show you guys what happened with this, because this was my fastest lap of practice, bar none. Now this lap was so good, I didn't even think I was going to be able to surpass it for the actual qualifying session, but then I remembered in qualifying we get fuel mix 4.
In this test, we want to make sure we can lap close to our rivals' pace.
But this lap just felt so very comfortable, even with how jittery it is here in the recording. A little bit of oversteer on the exit of that fast chicane, but it definitely didn't hinder me none. I actually gained a lot of time through that section. As you can see, the team only expected me to do a 29.3. I think I ended up eclipsing it by a fair margin here. There you go, I went for a 29.0, and I actually ended up beating both expectations on it. And this is something that happened later on. I was trying to beat it, and this is in practice 3, I do believe. And yeah, that one section got me again. So I ended up skipping through practice 3 here, because it just wasn't worth sitting there and finishing off. All the tyres that I had left in stock were shot. And I couldn't actually beat a 130.849.
It's time to remind ourselves of our top 3, who are Hamilton, Gasly and Charles Leclerc. And that's it, practice is officially over. Until next time, goodbye.
Now we made it over 500 resource points here, which gave us the opportunity to possibly do some more upgrades in between the race. But I decided I wanted to wait till after the race to get a big haul of points before I went and did any more upgrading to the car to what I've already
We're
done.
just about ready to kick off today's qualifying here in Melbourne. It's the Australian Grand Prix. Looking at this field today, Anthony, do you think we're going to see anyone take a chance? Maybe run the hard tyres and save some of the grippier tyres for the race tomorrow?
Well, I'd be surprised in all honesty. It's only the front runners that really have the pace to get away with that, and even then, at the end of the day, it's a big risk. Track position is the most important thing, and it's rarely worth sacrificing for a slightly more optimal strategy in the race, so I doubt we're going to see anyone trying it. I have been wrong before though. We certainly do see some risky decisions every now and then, and it's a gamble that's sometimes worth taking. But if it were me in the car, I would want to be on the fastest tyre for my qualifying lap, without a doubt.
Alrighty, here we go for our qualifying lap then. We're going to go out and start off with a flying lap. Now, this is the only qualifying lap we're actually going to get. As you can see, no one has actually set a time yet. We had the one Red Bull car behind us. I'm not actually sure who that was. I think it might have been Verstappen. Went a little bit deep into turn one, but didn't get an invalidated lap for it. A little bit of a lock up there, taking all the curb I could through turn three. Making the track as wide as possible in this tight section. Back end stepped out on me a little bit there. I did try and play around with making a setup, but it didn't work, and that's what resulted in that practice 3 crash. So I reverted back to the baseline setup, and that's what I did the race with here and the qualifying session. Pushing as hard as I can, taking all the curb that I can. Little bits of lock-ups here and there. Hulkenberg with the pole time at the moment. And here we come across the line. And it's a 1:28.352. Now we're skipping in later in the lap here. We were trying to get a second lap in, and we come up the inside of Leclerc, and we pushed this section just a little bit too hard, and we killed it. This is why we only got the 1 lap. And here's the outside view of it, and you see we just got the 2 left wheels into the grass, and that was all she wrote. Very dejected looking me heading back to the pits. We'll go through and see the qualifying results, and this is actually the first time that I've paid attention to what teams the other 2 Formula 2 characters came in. Devin Butler, as you can see there, in the Toro Rosso, and Lucas Weber in Alfa Romeo. As you can see at the moment, we are beating George Russell in the team rivalry. 2-1. As we get a little bit more resource points here. Now we move on to the race itself.
New drivers, new cars, it's a new Formula One season. But it's the same Albert Park that we've come to know and love for more than 2 decades now that plays host to round 1 of a 21-race championship that takes us from here in Australia across the globe and the eventual season finale at the Yas Island circuit in Abu Dhabi. The Melbourne circuit is certainly one that needs... Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Verstappen, Ricciardo...
So you can't half tell that
and Lance Stroll,
this is based
Sainz,
off of,
Alexander Albon,
you know, what
Raikkonen,
was
Butler,
perceived
Norris,
as
Williams, and Lucas Faber,
the way that people were going to qualify. The only exception is Hulkenberg being out in the first qualifying session there. I don't get what happened to him to make him worse than me.
Okay, I know it's your home Grand Prix, but treat it like any other race. Don't take unnecessary risks.
And this is where we're going to have a look at the race strategy for the first time as well. We'll get a quick little tutorial on the race strategy when we open it up. So I wanted to see the difference between going from the soft to the medium to medium to hard, just to see what it would have been like. And as we play around with it a little bit here, you'll see that it would not have been beneficial at all for me to have changed the strategy. And like even changing the pit stop by a lap affected the projected race time by half a second. I mean, it's not much at the end of the day, but it was enough to make me want to not do it. So now we get ready for the formation lap, and I actually launched really early here.
We're not seeing any technical issues coming off the practice start. Watch the RPM on the full start.
Oh, I thought that was a little bit of a funny bit there. No issue with the practice start, and I got the whole of 1.5 meters. So now we're at the end of the formation lap. I did everything I could to warm up my tyres as we get ready to grid up and start the Australian Grand Prix. Now we're revving for the lights. 5 red lights. And we are underway to start our season, our career in Formula One. Norris goes very defensive on the inside there, so do we. And it looked like we had Lucas Weaver on our inside as well. And we absolutely sent it into Carlos Sainz Jr. We only got a warning for it, but I'm pretty sure that actually led to Carlos Sainz's demise in this race. And a little bit of an important thing to note is that we also got a little bit of front wing damage there. And it didn't actually hamper us too much, but it was enough to be a little bit of an annoyance during the race, especially when we went for our pit stop and we had to change the front wing. As you can see, we're just following on the back of Lance Stroll here. Tried to look on the inside there, couldn't quite get the move done. So we just settle into position for a little bit. We've got Lucas Weaver right behind us. And behind him actually is the Iceman himself, Kimi Raikkonen. a great battle this entire first stint with Weaver and Raikkonen. Here's Weaver now going for a big inside lunge. He's got the car up there, but we get him back into the penultimate corner. And that's actually where Raikkonen got past Weaver. And now we had to deal with the Iceman in our mirrors. It was pretty much this entire first stint. It was either Raikkonen or Weaver the entire time, right there on my tail. They were trying to battle me hard as we skip through to the end of lap 2 now. We've got yellow flags up ahead, and it looks like Grosjean has an issue. That brought out the virtual safety car straight away. We look at the replay here. Grosjean has some kind of failure, and he actually got punted by Perez, which actually ruined Perez's wing there. We skip through now to the end of the virtual safety car period.
VSC ending, we're going green. Maintain positive delta until the green flags.
So we actually got really lucky there with when the virtual safety car ended. We were on the gas that entire part there, and Stroll, with that damage in his Racing Point car, I said Perez earlier, but I meant Stroll. Really, I did. We send it up the inside on the penultimate corner, damaging the left side of his wing even more, and he actually totaled off to the pits there because his car was undrivable at that point. I had actually completely forgotten that he had wing damage, and there's Raikkonen. A very intimidating thing to look at in the mirror, and we looked back and saw him, and that was even scarier. Now Raikkonen goes to the left. We go very defensive on the inside. There was contact there. We'll see that contact right now, actually. I squeezed Raikkonen for his entire life, and just about pushed him all the way off onto the grass. Because we're pushing very hard to stay in front of him and Weaver. Weaver is now back behind me. And this was pretty much the status quo for the rest of this first stint. Little mistake there by me.
Check your MFD for a new
Weaver did
strategy
catch up to
option.
me, but he wasn't able to mount a charge on me. As we see, race engineer wanted me to come in a lap earlier, and I told him no. They wanted me to come in on lap 7, so lap 7 it was going to be. We had a little bit of a yellow flag there, but it cleared up very quickly. And as you can see, I've got quite a bit of a train forming behind me here. I was looking back to see how close they were,
We're approaching the pit window.
just in
You'll be
case
on
I needed to
mediums.
get onto the defensive. Running a very defensive line along the straightaway, just running up that inside, and keeping it straight as I brake to the left side of the track for the corner. That was the best way I could think of defending. And that's actually what I did to Raikkonen the lap previous, which allowed Weaver to get around him. As I lock up in this area again, I was locking up there so much throughout the entire weekend. It was just terrible. But I managed to regain enough composure to keep going and stay ahead of the charge coming from the Alfa Romeos. You see Weaver now going for that big outside move, Couldn't get it done, and I squeezed him out on exit.
There is a fault to the DRS. You won't be able to open the rear wing. We're working on a fix.
And
Stay out.
as you heard there, we had an issue with the DRS. Not that it mattered to me because I wasn't behind anyone in the DRS detection zones. As we skip ahead now to the in-lap, lap number 7. You'll see that we'll go for our pit stop, and
Pit in this lap. Remember the speed
because
limit.
I didn't
We
remember
penalise
to
between exceeding.
change
Keep
the
that in
pit
mind as
stop
you approach.
in the little pop-up menu to not change my front wing, you'll see that they ended up changing my front wing and I lost a lot of time. And as you can see there, we've come out behind Butler. Of all people to lose time to, we lost it to
Complete.
that absolute fucking knob jockey. And it would actually take us an entire lap to get into a position of where we could actually attempt to overtake him. As you can see, I'm pushing very hard on these fresh tyres right now. Even taking the grass there, just doing anything I could to try and catch up to Butler here, because I did not want to lose to him of all people in my first race. Taking every single bit of that curb. Something that I became fairly good at in this race.
George is coming in for his stop.
As you can see, I'm right on the tail of Butler now. And now for the craziest overtake I've ever made in Formula 1. We get the DRS on Butler. We start catching him like a freight train. Then there's traffic coming out of the pits. There's Albon. And we squeeze in between Butler and Albon and get the double overtake made going into turn 1.
The car ahead is coming to fit the mediums. Car ahead, now running medium tyres.
And we start to run away from Butler using the DRS along that straightaway. Locked up a little bit into turn 3 there, which is something that I've done a lot of throughout this racing weekend. And now we take the march to try and get Weber.
Okay, the gap behind is 1.6.
We skip ahead now to the end of lap 9, the start of lap 10. Got some more traffic coming out of the pits, and this time it's Kimi Raikkonen on lap 10, and Raikkonen's gone in for the pits for mediums. Now we're working on the outside of Raikkonen here into turn 3. He tried to squeeze me like I squeezed him, but I got the outside pass done clean and clear. Much better than my defensive effort earlier in the race. I'm glad he didn't race me like I raced him.
Okay, gap ahead is 1.5.
And now we continue our march to try and overtake our former teammate. We skip ahead to lap number 11 here. And as you can see, I'm about the same distance behind him as what I was before. I was making up a lot of time in this little section here. Now I've got DRS on Weaver now. I caught up to him a little bit, but as you heard there on the radio, engineer just told me that he actually had some kind of an issue. Now it wasn't clear what kind of an issue he had. It did get cleared up a couple laps later down the track, but it was enough of an issue that he couldn't get away from me. And with me having the DRS on him, definitely made things a lot easier for me to try and overtake him. So we go for the big inside dive there in turn 1. He actually locked up and missed the apex altogether, which made things so much easier for me. And with him having his issue and me getting DRS on this second straight, I just pulled away from him. And now we move on to the end of lap 12, where we actually get another piece of news pop up here. Lando Norris is out of the race. We go and check the replay cameras, and it looks like he actually has a mechanical issue. This is not hydraulic or electrical. This one's proper mechanical, as you can tell by the smoke spewing out of his car. And if this was real life, you'd probably see some flames as well.
This is your final lap.
And now we skipped on to the last lap of the race. We're in P12.
Some information on Strong. They have an issue with their car. They're going to be slow.
The engineer tells me on the last lap here that Stroll has an issue, but there's nothing that I can do about it because he's just too far ahead of me to get him. So it's kind of like the engineer was giving me this great news: Stroll has issues. But it doesn't matter because I just won't be able to catch him. Get a warning for exceeding the track limits there. I must have had at least 5 warnings for track limits. No penalty though, which was strange because normally you get one after about 3 tries.
Less than a lap of fuel now. The tank is empty.
As you can see, I was playing around with the fuel here late in the race a lot. I actually got up enough nerve to start playing around with lean and rich mixtures. As we come around the third last corner, into the penultimate corner, and now into the final corner, we come across to take the checkered flag, and we have done it. We have finished our first Grand Prix as a Formula 1 driver, and we beat both of our Formula 2
Good job, you did really well. Super driving.
compatriots. I had to think of the right word there.
So Mercedes have won it, and what a great race it was. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
So Lewis Hamilton has won another Grand Prix. See Charles Leclerc there on the podium, and so is Bottas.
Let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. After an incredible performance, Lewis Hamilton secures the top spot in the
You see,
drivers'
we got
championship.
12th.
Let's focus
See
on
Devin
the
Butler
driver
there in
today.
14th,
Anthony
and Lucas
Davidson.
Weaver
Who
in
do you pick?
15th.
Well, often my
Now
go-to will be a
teammate
driver
George
who's
Russell
managed to put
down
up
in
an impressive peak during the
17th.
race. However, in this instance, I was more impressed by Nico Hulkenberg's clean driving throughout the event.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes moves
Well, we
to
have
the
a look
top
at
of
the
table.
points. We're in
And with that,
12th
we
in
wrap
the
up
points,
another weekend of motorsport.
and
But with
Williams
more
is
races
7th
lined up, be sure
in
to join us
Constructors.
when
Not that
we
it
come
matters
back
because we've all got
with
no
more
points.
Formula One.
And now we move on to the next interview.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it. That was a good race for Lucas. Are you pleased to see him doing well? gained a lot of positions during the race, didn't you? You really looked in control of your car out there. Your team must be thrilled. It wasn't the cleanest race today, was it?
Now this one, I really didn't want to answer it because I knew no matter what I answered, it would have been a rep decrease.
Right. Well, that's everything.
But all in all, I reckon that was a very successful first Grand Prix for us, managing to finish P12 after starting 17th. And as you can see, we're going to be leading the rivalry by a bigger margin now, 6 points to 3. And we gain a whole slew of resource points here from the race. We earn a lot of respect with a lot of the teams.
You're not the only driver to be hounded by the press. Emails, like the one I've just sent you, will give you an insight on how your former Formula 2 rivals are handling the press. Be sure to check your emails regularly, as I'll be sure to send you any of the more, let's say, interesting press transcripts that come my way.
Now, I thought this was pretty cool. We were able to see the interview transcripts from Devon and from Weber. I couldn't at the time figure out how to scroll through it. I ended up grabbing one of my PS3 controllers and scrolling through it. And now you can see what I've done with the R&D so far and what I'm going to do. It was a hard choice between picking something for the chassis and the aero. I ended up going for the minor front wing upgrade there. You see we've got one in the power source and one for the reliability on the way. They'll be here for the next Grand Prix. But I just couldn't afford to get any other upgrades, so everything else will have to wait for the next race. Now this will about wrap up this episode, guys. We're going to leave things off with the highlights video from the race. Please consider liking, commenting and subscribing on this video and my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.